let's take a look at how to add a client. From your dashboard under CRM, you'll want to click on the bullet for clients. This will take you to a screen that shows you all of your current clients, and from there you can click on Add a Client. This screen will ask you for several pieces of information in relation to your client. You'll want to add a display name, and this is the name that appears when you pull up your search filters. A first name and a last name, and then the company name if you'd like. Please be sure to note that anything with an asterisk next to the field means that it is required. You can add a email address. If there was an alternate email address, you could add that here. If you have a mailing address for them, you can put that in. And then phone, work phone, home phone, cell phone, and fax. Then you can put in some other information, such as a website URL. If they had a blog, you could put that in. If you knew the source for this client, whether it was coming from a website, a referral, networking, unknown, or you can actually, if you don't want to use any of the ones that are in that drop-down, you can create a new one. If you wanted to add some detail, you could add that here. Met at a party on August 25th. And then for their payment terms, you have a couple of options here. They can prepay, have net 15 or net 30. As you just saw when I moused over these question marks, it pops up a little box explaining to me what this is. So for example, for account rep, this says that some businesses assign an employee, perhaps a sales rep, to each client. If you don't do that, you can feel free to leave this section blank. So anywhere where there's question marks, you can feel free to mouse over that and get a little more information about what those fields are for. We're going to also have another tutorial on what sales follow-ups mean and how you can utilize those. But for this example, I'm going to assign an account rep for Kelly for my name. I'll assign myself as the account rep. I'm going to put a date of next sales follow-up as September 1st, 2009. And you've got a couple of different priority levels for your follow-up. It can be very high, high, normal, low, or very low. And then we have a couple of options for being able to receive communications from you. One is an email communication, fax communications, mailed is postal mail, and then there's also a field for if you're permitted to rent this person's postal information. These all default to yes, but at any time you can change these to no. So if, for example, your client calls you or emails you and says, I no longer want to receive email communications from you, you would just change this from a yes to a no, and that would make it so that they no longer receive those communications. Same with fax, postal mail, and if your client lets you know that they do not want you to rent out their postal information. Then we have a button here for active. You can change this from yes to no at any time. I also like to use this sometimes if I know that I want to put a client in but I don't want them to be maybe active in the system yet. I use this so that I can put as much information in as I want, and then if I need to go back and modify something before I make it active, I can do that. But it's going to always default to yes. And then segments, we're going to have a much more detailed tutorial on segments separately, so I encourage you to view that. But if you know that you want to tie this client to a particular segment, you would just select the segment here. So I'm going to put them in my email test segment group. And then once you hit submit, this takes you to a screen with all of your client information that you just entered. At any time you can edit this client or you can delete this client. And then we also have a couple of other options over here on the right hand side. You can add notes for this client. If you wanted to add another date of next sales follow-up separate from the one that you entered when you were adding the client, you can do that here. And then you can also send a copy of this note to people on your staff. So let's say, for example, I wanted to send a copy of this to Daniel. I would check his name and hit submit. And then immediately an email would be sent to Daniel letting him know about this note. I'm not going to send a note at this time, but once you hit submit, you'll now see that your note is there. You can add additional contacts for this client. So for example, if you have a primary client but you want to have 5 additional contacts at that client, this makes it so you don't have to go in and set up the client multiple times. You'll have all of your contacts listed under the parent client. So we'll just give this a fake name, and you can put in as much or as little information as you want. As you can see, none of these are marked as required. I'm going to leave them all checked to receive as all of our communications. And now you can see we've got this client. You can add a status update for this client. So if I wanted to mark that this client is a prospect for me, that means that if I wanted to come in here and do some search filters, which we'll show you how to do in a separate tutorial, I could pull up all of my prospects and market them in a specific way. And then you can also add another additional sales follow-up information here. And then also for your client, if you'd like to, you can add documents. If you wanted to add a PDF file, for example, this would be where you would do that. So those are the primary overviews of how to add a client, and I would strongly suggest that you take our tutorials on segments and also on sales follow-ups.